Hi everybody, it's Will on Live 4. And as you can see behind me, Smart Containers has been published on Creations. It really took me by surprise. It was only like a week or 10 days that the BGS had this, but I guess there was something about it that they liked, and I think you'll like it too. So, but let me first give you a little bit of background of what I'm going to do today. I've already done a video on this, which was posted a month or so ago, which really goes into detail about how it works. But I've been hard at work for the last month on taking this concept and expanding it. And I'm going to make a special announcement at the end of the video that's going to be a reward for you guys if you decide to take advantage of the mod now. But let's go out to my latest site out on Charybdis, and I'll show you what it looks like. Here we are on Charybdis, the area view. And what you see here is a manufacturing operation in which each of the 11 Tier 1 fabricators are hard at work producing their products that get stored in the storage behind them. Smart containers are all lined up here, and the inputs for these containers, some are coming through this distribution center, but notice there's no wires. So this is a wireless sorting system. And I also have a couple tier 3 and a couple tier 2s over here just to show you that it can be extended. So here we are down on the factory floor, and you're going to see toast from time to time because this is an ongoing factory. But let me give you the background. Why are they smart containers? Well, they are smart because you can teach them. And after you teach them, they have learned. How do you teach them? Well, first of all, this is all that's in the menu. So you have the 4 models. This stainless steel job over here is for organics, and the distribution center, which is kind of the router traffic control for the mod. You teach them by going to this briefcase, opening it up, and then you choose what it is that you want this particular container to sort on. Let's choose Indicite. The program is Indicite Smart Container, and the mod gives you 100 of these to start. Now, it's not really giving you. Let's say it's loaning you 100, because if we open it up, you see the little report, you owe 13,500 credits because, nothing is free in life, right? But however, you can earn it back because the second part of the brilliance of the containers is that not only will it buy when there's nothing inside or when you fall below a fixed reserve amount, it will also sell when the container goes above capacity. If we run over to some of these that are in operation, let's see this one. Gold, well, we're mining gold right here. So you see it's already sold 4,236 credits. And when the gold gets up to 250, it's going to sell that group also. They're very smart. And I think you can imagine the ways in which this can be useful. Let me show you one way outside of the normal factory operation, which we'll get back to in a second. You've been in this situation in which you're on a planet, and it's ideal. The time ratio is great, all the materials that you want. But unfortunately, there's no helium. So do you really want to go and have to set up a whole helium cargo link system? Well, I'll tell you what you can do if you have smart containers. Let's go over to the gas here, open it up. Helium. And the Smart Containers program, you have now 100 heliums. So in my outpost setup here, I have 1 interstellar coming from Hyla. So I'll go to my gas container and my helium and just go over. Where did they go? Of course, this would be the moment that, there it is, hiding back here. Now that cargo ship can actually deliver something. So let's just quickly run down the line of what is being stored and programmed. Here's aluminum, antimony, beryllium, cobalt, copper, gold, iron, nickel, silver, ionic liquids, alkanes, tetrafluorides, cosmetics, and fiber. They are all that you need just for these 11 single tier 1 fabricators. And the storage of those materials are over here. There's the zero wire, not so many reactive gauge, because we go up, you can see at reactive gauge here is feeding all of these other tier 1s. So I also have a tier 2 and a tier 3 in operation here. And I think they're stored over here. Okay, there's the semi-metal wafers and barrel treated manifolds from our tier 3. And those raw materials are over here. Ytterbium, beryl, lubricant. That's my fiber from before. All right, let's go around the back here. And I have set up a tier 2 to make nuclear fuel rods. And you can see it's a semi-metal wafer, which is the tier 2 right over there, and uranium and solvent, which we don't have here. So I'm going to go over and just program this. I'm going to turn myself off, at least my image off for a second, so you can see what's happening. So I'm just going to choose that. Uranium. Just check. Okay, programmed. And now solvent, compared to having to build 20 greenhouses on Kodos. No comparison, guys, no comparison. Solvent. Now, in this conventional setup here, I have to link my smart containers with the fabricator. There's the solvent. There's the uranium. And we should be getting some, is it in this one? There we go. Nuclear fuel rod. Okay. Let me just emphasize something which it may not be obvious to everybody, but of course you notice here I only have one smart container for each of probably, I don't know, 15 or 16 resources. And that's all you will ever need. It doesn't matter how many fabricators you put in a row. If you want to make, 10,000 zero wires with 20 different tier 1s, you can do it. You're always going to have enough silver and copper. It's going to cost you, but you'll never run out. The same as with that little experiment we did with the helium that's powering that cargo link over there. Because of the automatic buy or refill capabilities, it is one container for each resource, and that is all that you will need, which is very helpful for your build budget if you're really ambitious and want to go big time. Also, it is a money-making opportunity, although from my theory of the case of how outposts should work, you should not be rewarded so much for overproducing resources like all these extractors over here. The way that I want to play the game, I would like to have everything in balance. And I'm telling you, that is something which we're going to cover next. But before I leave the smart containers, I should mention that there's a push button over here which will provide a summary report. You can see we're losing money hand over fist because I don't have much. I only have a few cargo links coming in. There's an information terminal that shows you everything you need to know about how to work things, the do's and don'ts, and so on. And then there's a vault over here, which is a way to consolidate your credits. I'm not going to do that today. But the do's and don'ts reminds me, you can connect anything to the distribution center. Now, many of you, of course, have transfer containers. The transfer container can connect to here beautifully. But if you have other storage that is feeding the transfer container, it's much better if that storage connects directly to the distribution center. There's a lot of overhead involved in transfer containers, and it's kind of like cargo links. You never know what's going to come through the pipeline. So I would recommend that you hook up as many things as you can directly to the distribution center. You only want one distribution center in the outpost. You can put them in different outposts, that's fine, but it would be way too confusing if you had two routers competing with each other. And again, because of the fact that you only need one smart container for each resource, don't put multiples down, because again, you're going to create conflicts. I mean, it'll work, but it's likely to break down on some level. So you only need one. Okay, well, that's it on smart containers, and I hope that you guys do get them, and let me know your comments about them. But now I want to go on to the big surprise that I promised, so here it comes. I'm really happy with the way smart containers worked out, because I think it does provide for the first time absolute control over sorting without burdening your build menu with all kinds of containers, without changing any keywords. And then the buy-sell mechanism that Rune Law 63 first came up with in TA purchase crates and kindly shared with me makes the smart containers, I think, really helpful. Well, I promise you that there was going to be something extra. And just let me give you a bit of background. The smart containers and drop-off box are both based on Papyrus scripting. You just can't do these things with using ordinary objects in the game and manipulating them in the creations kit. You got to get back into and give instructions on how you want things to work. So this has been months of deep into the Papyrus world with a little bit of Python and C# but all kinds of other ideas and things that I've been studying. It's a blast from the past. But I think that it works well in smart containers. But it didn't do enough, and you've seen some posts up here. Toast, rather. So I'm not going to take any more time. But here we are. This is smart Fabricators. If I go up here and you look at this, what you are seeing is a complete, total factory. I am making every one of the 30 products right here. And notice there is not a single wire. They are coming into the distribution center like smart containers. And you see there are smart containers for each tier. And it is, I really am wild about this. And it's not just making the products. Let's go down to the floor and I'll show you. What is so special about what I've created here? Well, I am trying to set up a system in which you as the player can control as much as you possibly can, and as much as I can script for, actually, to be honest with you, so that each of the containers and each of the fabricators can be programmed in a number of different ways, depending on what your objectives are. So we've seen in the smart containers in the version that was just released that they did automatic backfill. So you would never run out of material. Well, here I have made that an option. So you can enable it or you can disable it. Now you want to go hardcore and disable it. You know, that little trick that I had to provide the helium to the cargo link over there is not going to work. And you're going to need a lot of resources coming in order to keep up with the demands of your fabricators. So that's the major change in smart containers. Otherwise, they work the same way. You set capacity, and there's a reserve, and it can sell above and so on. But my objective is not to, as I said before, to sell resources. Let's look at the fabricators. Here, I've had to completely redo the entire system. So when you open it up, you don't get your standard menu, but you get a choice of a number of customizable features. So first of all, of course, you can choose which resource you want to make. Well, that's the same as any ever. But then you can set the speed at which this particular fabricator will work, from slow to very fast. You can set the batch size. So if you want a lot of production from this particular fabricator, you would set it up to 10. But if you're worried that you're going to overtax another one of your fabricators, or it's going to take too much material that another one may need, you can set it as very low, only 1. You can again set the capacity. And here you can decide whether or not you want to sell that overflow. Now, for these fabricators that are feeding other fabricators downstream, you probably don't want to sell your overflow. But down at the end, you almost certainly do when you're at your titanium fuel rods and Veril-treated manifolds and so on. So this particular fabricator is making isocentered magnets. And if we open it up, we can see that the capacity is at 50 and it's filled up. It's only at 1, and the speed is actually very slow. It's earned 5,400 credits. So this is what I like to do. And as I go around and look at what's happening, I check and see. If I go over to, let's look at this guy. This is the nuclear fuel rod, and it looks like it has them. And it's also getting semi-metal wafer and solvent, which of course it needs. And then the nuclear fuel rods are going over here and feeding the Vitinium fuel rods, which are the last one over here. And you see it's working. It's getting them. Again, this is all happening through, a complicated system of registration and various catalogs and so on that I've had to create, so that in effect what's happening is that each of these fabricators actually have 3 parts to them. They have the intake part, in which it is advertising. It's saying, hey, out there, in this case, anybody got some semi-metal wafers? Well, semi-metal wafers over there in the tier 2 saying, okay, that's me. And so the link is made and the objects transfer. But in addition, this guy is also a fabricator. So he's taking all this stuff and making rothosite magnets. Now that happens, that's an end of the stream product. But if we look at one of these other ones, the paramagnon conductor, it is doing the same thing. It's calling out for zero wire and calling out for gold. And then after it makes the paramagnon, it's going up and saying, hey, I'm paramagnon. Who needs me? So that's how the system works. I mean, I'm really, really proud of how smooth it is. Now, it's not absolutely perfect. This is a work in progress. And there's many complications that come up. But I think I've got most of the bugs ironed out. The one feature which I'm looking to find a solution to is reporting. Because, of course, it's a lot of fun to be running around, looking at each of these and seeing how they're doing. But it would be nice to have, the dynamic terminal with reports, which I have not been able to get Papyrus fragments to work in Starfield. Maybe someone else can show me how to do it at some point. So I think I'm going to end up with, these kind of reports that we see here, which, are message boxes that's really not great. Although, I do have the menu system, not here, but that you see in the Fabricators, in which, there's choices to make. But that's choosing from a list. It is not showing you what's happening. So anyway, the reporting is important, and I'm still working on that. But similarly to the smart containers, you really only need one of these guys, because with the customization possible, you can do whatever you want with this. And you can speed it up, slow it down, you can do more, you can do less. Customizable, dependent on exactly what your objective is. And of course, my objective is to get all of those, the 7 or 9 tier 3s, to make as much as possible, because they're the most valuable. Okay, well, that's the way I play it. You may want to do it differently, but this is how the smart containers will work. So let me tell you about what kind of special deal I'm going to offer here. Right now, the smart container is available on Creations for a couple bucks. If you buy that now, I will provide Smart Fabricators when it's done as a free upgrade. At some point, I'll stop the smart containers and just have the Smart Fabricators. But for the interim period, if you spring for the containers, you'll get the Fabricators whenever it's ready. Now, guys, let's be real. I'm 86 years old, so we're not talking about a long time. I'm working on this day and night. I'm going to get it out to you guys, because I know it's what I'm doing in my old age. It's really, really helpful to me, and it's fun. So, okay, that's the way the deal will work. In the meantime, grab the smart containers, leave your messages, subscribe to my videos if you haven't done it. This will be the only place that you can really communicate back and forth. I'm trying to set up a Discord site, but it's another, I have enough on my hands, organizing functions and variables and so on in my scripting. It's another whole language to have to learn for Discord. So we use YouTube for the interim. So, okay, that's enough for today. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.